The Jump Force beta, the first session of it anyway, has officially ended, and I had a blast. First of all, let's keep in mind this is a first impressions type video, so my opinion is subject to change on a lot of stuff. This is purely the first impressions after 2 hours of gameplay, which is the entirety of the length of the first session of the beta. Let's get a few negative things out of the way. The game has a lot of motion blur. This is something I very much dislike, and I hope to see it changed in the future, because as somebody who plays on a monitor, which means I'm sitting much closer to my screen than most people, the motion blur is a significant problem. It did not cause any problems across the 2 hour long beta, but I did notice a little bit of fatigue, and I think after playing for many hours more than just 2, I would probably end up getting headaches, especially while I'm in the lobby. Speaking of the lobby, after each match, the camera would reset itself in a very odd position. It always resets itself to behind the player, which is weird because currently the way it works is the player will face away from the NPC you last spoke to, which means your camera ends up in this really strange and quite frankly pointless position that you would never deliberately set your camera to. I need this to be changed ASAP because it's really annoying, and as far as I can tell, it's just some default stuff that would be very easy for them to change. The FPS in the lobby seemed to be lower than 30 at some points, in fact most points. I would imagine 30 is the target goal, especially when there's this many people in the lobby. And don't get me wrong, the lobbies are beautiful, but it certainly needs some work to help with that frame rate issue, because it's really bad at some points. Speaking of FPS being bad, a few super moves or ultimate attacks, or whatever you want to call them, have noticeable frame drops. Most notably, I would argue, is Naruto. His QB Sage Beast Bomb makes the FPS drop to what I believe is lower than 20. This doesn't affect gameplay too much though, because of the way that the attack works. It would be very rare that you get hit by it because of the FPS drop or something like that, so it doesn't have a significant impact on gameplay. Regardless, I would like them to work on it. The FPS drop on other characters' supers are nowhere near as dramatic. Another character, Toguro, has a FPS drop as well, but it's fairly minor. This is true for most of the roster. In fact, I would argue most of the roster doesn't even have any frame drops during their super. It just depends on how cinematic the super is. Honestly, I don't think the frame drops are too important when it comes to supers, unless it's a super that has a real world impact. It's not just a cutscene. So for example, a super like Sasuke's doesn't really matter, because if you get hit by it, you're taking that damage anyway. However, something like the Spirit Bomb, if that had like a massive FPS drop, it would be a problem, because the Spirit Bomb takes time to come hit your opponent, which they could theoretically move out of or block, but if an FPS drop happens, maybe that's going to stop them from doing that. Thankfully though, the Spirit Bomb doesn't seem to have too many issues, at least that I've noticed. Other characters have issues with FPS outside of their supers. For example, in the case of Rukia, her assist and what I believe is her circle special, or perhaps maybe triangle special, she charges up a big ice attack, and it does a lot of damage, but it also lowers the frame rate significantly, which could be a big issue. As far as gameplay is concerned, I feel like grabs are very, very weak. Grabs should be fairly strong though, because of the mix-up potential that it has. After dashing towards your opponent, if they're blocking, I'm pretty sure universally you won't be in grab range. I know for a fact that most characters won't be in grab range, because I tried it multiple times, and after dashing towards your opponent, you won't be able to grab them, which is a pretty big problem. You would have to dash to your opponent, let them block it, walk up to them, and then grab. Between that time, they're almost definitely hitting you, considering how fast-paced this game is. So it makes grabs feel really useless. The camera feels really slow during intros as it pans across each character. It makes everyone at the start of the match staring at each other look really awkward, and I would like to see that sped up significantly. Alright, with all of that out of the way, let's get into what I actually liked, which is pretty much everything else. I played a lot of versus AI because I wanted to record a little bit of everything with each character, and what I noticed while doing this is that every character has a cool flavor or gameplay reason to play them. I had no interest in playing certain characters, but after testing them out for recording reasons, I was questioning whether I wanted them on my main team or not. For example, Blackbeard is a character I have no interest in. He comes from a series I haven't finished, and his player model is very large, and I've never played large fighting game characters because they're usually not my playstyle. But Blackbeard has some really cool stuff. His power set is super interesting, and if I can put half of that stuff on my creator character at launch, I'm basically just gonna play small Blackbeard, because again, his special moves and his ultimate are all really cool, and I hope that your CSC can do at least some of that. Ichigo, again, a character from a franchise I have not finished, but astoundingly, Ichigo is a character on my team, partially because he's really easy to use. He feels very fast paced, he's got high damage and high speed, which is really nice combination, but also because of his amazing animation work and special effects, he just seemed really appealing to me. Another character, Gon. I didn't think I was gonna like Gon's gameplay at all. I love the character Gon, but I didn't think I was gonna like his gameplay because of the way that his specials work. It just didn't seem like the playstyle was gonna work for me, but after playing him for even a little bit, I noticed they were far more simple than I thought they were going to be, and I'm gonna really try to work Gon onto my team just because of how fun he is, not only from a gameplay perspective, but from a character perspective as well. Frieza, a character who aesthetically I've never really understood. I never really liked Frieza until Dragon Ball FighterZ. I wanted to have Frieza on my Dragon Ball FighterZ team so bad, but sadly his gameplay style just doesn't suit me. However, in this game, this is not the case. I loved Frieza's gameplay in this game, and I cannot wait to experiment with him more. These are just some of the many examples I could bring up of characters that truly surprised me in this game. One negative thing I will say is that the universal mechanics of this game, like smash attacks and the combo system in general, feels very strange. I'm not necessarily sure if that's a negative thing or not. It's just a very different and new style of game that I'm not used to, and hopefully I'm going to get more used to it the more I play the game, and it will feel more natural. Let's talk about netcode. Netcode is a very difficult thing for me to talk about because remember, I live in Australia, which is one of the worst places in the world to live for online gaming. It's very difficult to find other Australian players in this type of beta, so keep in mind my experience versing other people is going to be versing other people from across the world, not right next to me. So you're going to have a very different experience than I have. With that said, I have to say, I simply just don't have a large enough sample size to judge the netcode. I only got to play a handful of online matches because of all the versus AI stuff I was doing so I could get used to all the characters for recording reasons, and that handful of experiences was anywhere between awful, amazing, and just okay. This doesn't mean that that's going to be your experience though, because again, I live halfway across the world to most of the people playing this game. If I have to give an opinion on it, I would say it was pretty good. The few Americans I've spoken to about the beta so far seem to be underneath the impression that it was really solid netcode. So currently, that's my opinion too. Alright, let's talk about create a character. One of the more interesting gameplay mechanics, or not gameplay mechanics, I would say features for Jump Force, and this was kind of like the do or die moment for them, right? We got to find out what they were about and what type of customization we expect to see on them when we get the game. And I thought for the most part, CSEs were handled very well. Really, the only negative things I have to say about CSEs are that currently they don't have an intro. I think this is just unfinished. I think by launch we will have intros for CSEs. One reason they might not have intros right now is because they might theoretically have story implications in the things that they say. It's also very possible that they just haven't finished them, whether it be because of somebody not finished their voice lines, whether it just be because they haven't been exported for game use. There's 1,000 reasons they might not be in the game, but the point is currently they're not in the game. I'm assuming they will be though by launch. The CSEs also currently don't have an awakening, which is, I'm not even sure if that's a negative thing. This is likely not to change just because of either thematic reasons or just because it could take up a lot of development time. For example, if you give them Super Saiyan, do they grow Super Saiyan Goku hair, or do they get their own custom hair? What happens, right? There's a lot of development time that has to be done for each different awakening. It just doesn't seem worth it. Just don't give them an awakening. With all of that said though, I know I brought up a lot of negative stuff, but the Jump Force beta, in my opinion, was far better than I thought it was going to be. I had so much fun trying out each character, and then as soon as I started playing online matches, I realized how much fun this game is going to be. I thought it was really generous of them to give us a AI mode, and obviously online matches as well. I would have very much liked to have seen a challenge mode so I could challenge my friends, but regardless, still pretty happy to see what we got. One massive thing I noticed about gameplay is that it doesn't feel like a team game in the way that it should. Part of the beauty of this game is bringing together our teams, right? It's bringing together these teams from across different anime. You can have Luffy, Naruto, and Goku on the same team, or you can throw Ichigo in there instead of one of those characters. It's a really cool system. Unfortunately though, the gameplay mechanics themselves doesn't feel like a team game. You don't feel rewarded for switching characters the way that you do in other team games, which is a big shame because that should be a part of the appeal, using these characters simultaneously. And yes, it's awesome that we do have assists and we do have the ability to switch between teammates, but there doesn't seem to be a reason to do anything with your team besides assists. You should just pick your one-man character and then use assists with your other characters. Another thing I don't like about the team system is that the control layout for it doesn't seem very intuitive at all. Currently, the way it works is if you hold down the button, you get the assist attack from your teammate. If you tap the button, they tag in. I think this should be the other way around, and I don't see a reason for it not to be. One reason is that it would be more difficult to use them in a combo, which I completely understand, but I feel like the solution for this is to add an option to allow you to switch between the two rather than just defaultly having everybody tap to tag in rather than hold to tag in, which I think would be a superior system for me anyway. I would like to see the health bar system change. I think each character should have their own health bar. This is not a game-breaking deal for me, but that's just my own personal opinion. I think each character should have their own health bar. This would reward you for switching out characters. You could even copy the health bar system that Dragon Ball FighterZ has, allowing you to switch into another character and have that other character heal while you're doing that. Seriously, the game was so much fun, and I'm anxiously waiting to be able to play the next session of the beta. If you haven't gotten a beta code, there's a ton of people in the community looking to give you beta codes. Check Reddit, check Twitter, check all the places. People are very kind. People want you in the beta, mainly so that they can beat you up in online matches, but you know, regardless, they want you in the beta. Let me know what you thought of the Jump Force beta. What characters are you playing? That's something I really want to hear. I want to hear what characters were on your team. I'm so excited to play the next session of the beta, where I'm almost definitely just going to be playing online, because in this beta I focused way too much on recording each character. I didn't realize it was going to take me that long, but regardless, I got it out of the way. Again, thank you so much for watching. My name has been Bilbzy. If you want to keep up to date with more Jump Force content, remember to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.